محمدا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة، حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح، حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر، الله أكبر، لا إله إلا الله.
الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور انفسنا ومن سيئات اعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، واشهد ان لا اله الا الله وحده لا شريك له، واشهد ان محمدا عبده ورسوله. يا ايها الذين امنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء، واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم، ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد, all praise is due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We praise Him, we seek His assistance, and we implore Him to forgive us. I bear witness that there is no God worthy of worship except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that His slave, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, is His last and final messenger. My dear respected brothers and sisters, subhanAllah, obviously last week, Shaykh gave us a beautiful khutbah about the significance of Gaza, the Masjid al-Aqsa, and a little bit about the history and significance of this holy land to us as Muslims, as obviously the events unfold. And subhanAllah, I'm sure many of you asked this question of yourselves, or I've asked it myself, and I don't really have an answer. Is, all of us here, as residents of Bothell or Redmond or whatever, living here in the U.S., what is our role? What is our duty? What can we do realistically, right? Sometimes we feel helpless. And subhanAllah, you ask different people, you'll get different answers. I don't know the answer. But when I was thinking about that, I thought, everything happens for a reason. Of course, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a plan, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made promises to us. This is what I know for certain, right? And one of those promises is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will grant victory. But there's a but, right? Are we ready for that victory? Are we today, if I look at myself, just myself, and I say, am I that person that if the whole ummah was the same person, are we ready for that Muslim? Because this is not new, right? It's happened before. And Allah gave victory to Muslims before. So there are reasons for victory and there are reasons for defeat. So I can't control the geopolitics, but I can control myself, right? So it's like the basics. This is what I think. Let's start with the basics, right? I can change myself, I can change the environment, and then Allah will grant us that victory. So part of that is understanding what is it that I need to work on. If I don't know what's missing, I don't know what to do. I'm just following this and following that. And subhanAllah, one of the important things hopefully we can get out of this khutbah today, inshallah, is that, Wallahu a'lam, one of the main things we need to do is we need to work on our Muslim identity. We need to work on our Muslim, that's kind of a big term, what is Muslim identity, right? But either reestablishing it or strengthening it. In some cases, we actually need to work on re-establishing the Muslim identity, especially in this country. I'm not going to give examples, you can all find your own examples of how the Muslim identity is getting wiped away. How can we talk about Quds when this next generation might not even understand Islam? It doesn't make any sense. Right? It doesn't matter for 3 billion. I don't care how many. So this is what I feel like each one of us can control. So that's what I want to talk about today. Just what is this Muslim identity? And subhanAllah, Islam, when Islam came, it was, so I worked very hard on establishing this. And you'll see some examples when we do the Khutba today. It was really to establish this identity and to be opposed to the enemy. Right? We have to identify the enemy and oppose them, be different from them. Right? We have to stand for something on our own. Otherwise, what victory are we waiting for? So, like I said, when Islam is revealed, and we'll go through some examples, there were the polytheists, right? And there was also the Christians and the Jews, the Kitab, and Nasara and Yahud. But the Prophet ﷺ made it very, very clear that we were coming, this Sharia, he was giving the Sharia, Islam was to oppose all of their actions, right? And how can you appreciate Islam and light Islam if you don't understand the darkness of Jahiliyyah at the time? And that's what Rasulullah said. He said, أَلَا كُلُّ شَيْءٍ مِنْ أَمْرِ الْجَاهِلِيَّةِ تَحْتَ قَدَمِ الْمَوْضُوعِ That I have come to trample all these umur of Jahiliyyah. Right? And we have Jahiliyyah around us today, right? The term applies. There's still something within the Muslim community. So we need to overcome that first. Obviously, the first thing was Islam came to clarify the Tawheed, right? So we need to make sure that, alhamdulillah, we worship, like I mentioned this many times in the Khutba, Tawheed at the time, they were worshiping multiple gods and idols. So we don't do that anymore, but that's not to say there weren't, factions that take things and describe them similar to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? Where are we looking for victory? Or who are we asking for dua? These type of things. So obviously, Tawheed, this was something Islam came to be very clear about, right? What else? Having expectations, good expectations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Husnul dhanni billah. Right? Allah says in Surah Al-Imran, يَظُنُّونَ بِاللَّهِ غَيْرَ الْحَقِّ ظَنَّ الْجَاهِلِينَ. That these other people, they think of Allah wrongly, this thought of Jahiliyyah. So we can't question the wisdom of Allah and say, why is this happening to our brothers and sisters? Why is this? Why is that? That's actually opposing to Islam. Okay, so that's another important thing. Because you might see factions and start questioning, then why is this happening? Why are they being slaughtered this way? No, this is actually not from Husnul Dhanni Billah, so you have to be careful about that. When I talk about, am I preparing myself for the Nasr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Well, first of all, am I truly giving all judgment and legislation to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in all my own, right? This is again another important concept of Islam that came to oppose Jahiliyyah. They had all sorts of rules they used at the time. They had culture, same thing, we have culture. But when it comes to me, am I elevating culture to what the Prophet came, Kitab al-Sunnah, or am I saying no, this opposes the Kitab al-Sunnah, right? So this is the same thing, making sure I'm only leaving that legislation to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like I mentioned, this concept of following the Sunnah of Rasulullah and Kitab al-Sunnah, and not following your culture, not following what your forefathers taught us, what we were brought up on. Right? That's exactly following the people of all the nations. That's what they always say. Well, you're coming to tell us to do something opposed to what our parents told us, right? More of the deed. So this is something that, again, maybe not in the fact of worshiping idols, but we all have some things in our cultures that people do. They're opposed to Islam, but it's because they were raised that way. Right? This is what we learned. And so that's something that we have to also clarify and purify. We're expecting this nasr from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And another important thing is that we, as Muslims, as establishing or enforcing this identity, we need to understand that, as you all know, it's being painted with all sorts of brushes, right? And this makes even particularly this situation, although Muslims are the extremists, they're the terrorists, right? You're being oppressed, your land's taken away, you're being killed, and you're being called a terrorist. So Islam is the religion, as you know, of being in the middle. Islam is the religion of justice. And even in acts of worship, right, by that, the Christians and the Jews are the ones that they're the ones that went extreme in one direction or the other, actually. As we know, in Nasara, they went extreme and they praised Isa and they made him a prophet, made him a god. And then on the other side, you have the Jews, Yahud, and they would vilify their prophets and kill them, right? So we're in the middle. So this extremism in thought is actually something that's not from Islam, right? Again, that's when I talk about establishing the right identity. If I don't know what's right and wrong in my own religion, then I'm and having to be able to defend myself when these things get thrown around in a situation like this, right? So I hope this just kind of makes the point that again, Islam, establishing Muslim identity is a very important step in then becoming ready for the Nasr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it's not easy, you have to work on it. And then there's multiple other examples in our ibadat. It's very important to understand and to know, the very simple thing of the call to prayer. Rasul at the time wanted the call to prayer that was different than any other calls to prayer. He didn't want the ringing of the bells and the things that they did. And so the adhan came along. And, the Ru'ya of Umar ibn Khattab, and then the Prophet accepted. So again, emphasizing, you are different, you are different, you are different, right? This is very important because there are certain things that may be in common, but as a Muslim wants to establish that identity and expects this nasr from Allah, then we need to first of all, establish that we are different and we are on the right path. We just finished the month of Ramadan, right? We fasted. Even the fasting, they had fasting, but our fasting was made specifically to be different. Again, specifically to different. It was suhoor before the time of fasting. Even the fact, there was obviously concept of a lot of arguments in the West there, but the sighting of the moon for the beginning of the month, and Taymiyyah has beautiful words about this. He says this is the distinction that Allah gave to this ummah. There's other ummahs, they can go whatever science or calculation. We were given a specific sign. It's a matter of distinction. Be proud of it. Rather than arguing about when we've gone to the moon, why can't we expect the day of Ramadan to be known? Just take it as a sign of your deed. This is my point. Because all these things they build up. How are we going to build a strong Muslim if we're always trying to push down our identity for whatever reason? And then finally, when calamities befall, right? This is the sunnah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It will happen to believers, right? This is the way Allah tests believers. So this is obviously going to happen, but when it happens, how do you react? Right? This is what I'm sure you're asking yourself. And obviously, as I mentioned at the beginning of the Khutba, the first thing is do not question the wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? Shaitan might come to you. This is something you have to defeat yourself. Right? This is from the hikmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The prophets, they were the closest to Allah, they were the most tested, right? So then it makes sense that we're all going to be tested. It's how we respond. And that's what's important. And then, as I want to transition, so this is kind of established the idea, right? But, what is it that we can do? What does Islam ask us to do? And what is, from the identity, from the Muslim identity, what is being asked of us? And one of the most important things that's being asked of us is, and this will come as no surprise, but it's the unity, right? We need to be unified. Again, it means different things, different people argue about it, people all constantly argue about this. But at the bare minimum, right? We can't have these divisions that we've created, these artificial divisions, right? Cultural divisions, countries. So one of the worst things that can happen, that has happened, is, whatever's the matter of the Quds and Aqsa, right? This is, as again, they gave us the Khutba last Friday, important, immense significance to the Muslim. But it's been made to look, it's only an issue for a certain group of people. Maybe just the Arabs. Or worse yet, it's only the Palestinian issue. This is so. What unity are we talking about? If we're just making this an issue of the people, So, as a bare minimum, we need to educate ourselves and work on ourselves in our youth. That's what I'm going to get at eventually. Is that may Allah, use us for the most of this deen. But these things take generations, right? So we can't be just planning short term for within a year or 5 years. So we have to start with ourselves, but our youth is very important, right? Youth until 40, inshallah. So, this is a very dangerous thing. That's what I'm trying to make, and that we have to go across that. We see that every day, but in a big. I mean, if we can't have unity within people for certain small things in our community, then how are we going to expect to unite about, say that the Aqsa is something that we all need to strive to at least have it as a goal, right? To work towards it, just no matter what way we're doing. One incident that happened in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, not to show you that this was a great matter. This was after the Hijrah. Of course, the Ansar in general, of course, we look up to the Ansar as how welcoming they were to the Muhajirun. We all know the stories. But one day there was a quarrel between somebody from the Ansar, somebody from the Muhajirun, right? And so the narration says that each person wanted to call help. So the man from the Ansar said, Ya Ansar, started calling his people, Ya Ansar, kind of help me, And then the person from the Muhajirin started calling, Muhajirin, Muhajirin. And the Prophet ﷺ got very angry at this. He stopped it. He said, this is what you just did. This is from the act of Jahiliyyah. This is from the act of Jahiliyyah. Because we claim that we entered Islam, we're supporting each other, why are we calling where they're from? This is Mecca and Medina, right? Not Egypt and Pakistan, for example. They're very close. But even then, even the Prophet said, stop it. This is from the Ummah of Jahiliyyah. So, that's very, very important to keep in mind. قل قولي هذا استغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. I could give more and more examples. Obviously, we don't have enough time. I just want to highlight this. A couple more quick things. Parents, we also were commanded to look different from them. Also, I saw this in hadith. This is Bukhari Muslim. خالف المشركين. Look different than the mushrikeen. How? Rasulullah, firru liha. Grow your beards. Wax your shawai. Cut your mustaches. So even the parents will have to look different, because eventually you start looking like the people. You start kind of integrating whether you actively are or not, right? This is just because you look like them, you start talking, acting like them. It's human nature. It's nothing. So we, again, establishing that identity and then highlighting, before I move to the last part, all the beautiful things that Islam has, specifically opposing, what the other religions have, right? One very important one, women, right? Women's rights. So let's talk about women's rights. But we look at actually what Christianity and Jews and Judaism talks about in terms of how they treat women, and women, in the gender restoration cycle, all that. Very different than Islam. Very different than Islam. Islam honors women, gives her proper rights. Just scratching the surface, right? And on and on. But what I wanted to get at very quickly, because we have a very short time, right, is if we can establish identity, this is the first step. This is basic, groundwork type stuff, foundation. Because we can't just let generation after generation go by and just keep wishing for things to happen, like giving them up so much, right? So when we appreciate our religion, when we're happy, when we're proud of our identity, then we need also education, right? We need to educate ourselves, we need to educate that generation. And then inshallah be prepared, right? If Allah doesn't will the victories come at that time, at least you can say you've done your part, you've prepared yourself. Right? Allah, and then Allah will have the time, right? But it's very important that we are doing our bare minimum to kind of prepare ourselves. And then, so one thing just on that, how I was thinking about it, as an example, right? So, the beginning of the revelation, the very beginning of the revelation, the Prophet ﷺ, Jibreel comes out the very first time, the Prophet is very shaken by this, right? So he goes to his wife Khadija, right? And he tells her what she saw. And Khadija and her, subhanAllah, of course, Allah picks the right people for the right moments. This is the beginning this is like the nucleus of Islam, the very first step. She could have behaved in many different ways, but she was, she believed him, she was prepared, and she was knowledgeable. She said, no, there's something here, right? Allah's not going to let you go astray, but I'm going to take you to somebody who has the knowledge. So she took him to Waraq ibn Nawfal, right? This was a man who was very old. Very old, he lost his eyesight, but he was a learner. He had read, he had known that this would be a time when a new prophet would come. So what is it? He prepared himself. This is an old man, he's blind. Like he's probably expecting, to die any day, but he knows there's a prophet that's going to come, so he's like aware, so he's waiting. Right? He asks this person, when is the prophet going to come? How are you going to help him? I have nothing. He's an old blind man, but he was prepared. You know why he was prepared? Because when Khadija came to him, and told him about the Prophet ﷺ, and said, what? He said, إِنَّمَا هَذَا النَّامُوسِ. This is the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the time. And if I were young, I would have supported you. I would have fought with you. I wish I was young, because your people will expel you from your land. This is prepared. This is an old blind man. Right? But he prepared himself with what he could, and he waited, and when he saw the truth, he was ready to act. He said, I wish I was young. So, and how I heard that, we've all heard this, I'm sure, many times, but when I was thinking about it in the context of what I can't go change anything physically, unfortunately, and that, Allah, forgive us for our shortcomings, but I can at least be honest with myself and see, can I prepare myself? Can I prepare those people that will be able to do it? Can I at least educate myself? Correct. Can I fix my Muslim identity, right? This is what I feel like is an action for all of us. This, I believe, I feel, Allah, this is something we can actually actively do right now, as a minimum. And then expect the victory from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us amongst those who are ready for the victory of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That we are the ones that on the day of judgment, inshallah, we can stand in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and say, Allah, I did what I could, and I waited for your chances, right? Your you waited for your time. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be amongst those that establish and re-establish and affirm the Muslim identity, wherever we are. That alone, subhanAllah, this line is your jihad, right? I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us amongst those who, hear, يسمعون القول فيتبعون أحسنه. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to free our brothers and sisters, in Palestine, Gaza, to return Masjid al-Aqsa, to make us amongst those that contribute to the return of Masjid al-Aqsa. It's happened before, it will happen again, inshallah. This is part of our belief. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive all those who have passed away, who were killed, and to lift, الظلم عن جميع في كل مكان. إنه على ذلك قدير.
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
So, fill in the gaps you can, with the lines and straighten the lines as much as you can. Allahu Akbar. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. سبح اسم ربك الأعلى الذي خلق فسوى والذي قدر فهدى والذي أخرج المرعى فجعله غثاء أحوى سنقرئك فلا تنسى إلا ما شاء الله إنه يعلم الجهر وما يخفى ونيسرك ذكر إن نفعت الذكرى سيذكر من يخشى ويتجنبها الأشقى الذي يصلى النار الكبرى ثم لا يموت فيها ولا يحيا قد أفلح من تزكى وذكر اسم ربه فصلى بل تؤثرون الحياة الدنيا والآخرة خير وأبقى إن هذا لفي الصحف الأولى صحف إبراهيم وموسى. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. إذا زلزلت الأرض زلزالها وأخرجت الأرض أثقالها وقال الإنسان ما لها يومئذ تحدث أخبارها بأن ربك أوحى لها إذ يصدر الناس أشتاتا ليروا أعمالهم فمن يعمل مثقال ذرة خيرا يره ومن يعمل مثقال ذرة شرا يره. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.